Welcome to a brief introduction to the criminological imagination. In this video, we'll learn a little bit about what C. Wright Mills meant by the sociological imagination in his book, The Promise, and we'll apply it to our study of the causes and consequences of crime. So C. Wright Mills argues that if we can understand our own behaviors, the behaviors of others, and we can examine phenomena that occur in a society just simply by looking at the big picture, and taking into account that behaviors are the result of an intersection between biography and history. Oh, I can see the eye rolls and hear the groans already from a few of you who are wondering what on earth Mills was smoking and why his sociological imagination matters to criminology and criminal justice. Bear with me. It's actually very cool and fun. Suppose we want to know why some adolescent boys or girls do really well in school while others do so poorly that they end up dropping out and in trouble with the law. For a minute, let's imagine that we're curious to learn more about Fred and Timmy. Say we can go ask young Fred to explain why he is choosing to go down the wrong path. Our interrogation might go something like, "Fred, why don't you care about doing well in school? When you bother to show up, you sleep through half your classes, and I heard you've been hanging around the older boys who are always in trouble with the cops. Don't you know you're going to end up a dropout and probably in jail, or worse? Why don't you get your act together?" Now let's say Fred chooses it's worth his time to open up to some snotty adult who thinks they know his life. Fred tells us that it isn't that he doesn't care about doing poorly in school. He does care. He has a baby brother at home, and he wants his brother to learn to do well in school by watching his big brother go to college someday. There's a lot going on at home, though. Dad bailed when the baby brother came along, and that left Mom all alone working day and night at the local grocery store. Fred tells us that sometimes he has to babysit his brother all day because his mom is at work. She's trying so hard to make sure that there's enough food to eat and that the bills get paid. There's definitely not enough money left over for a real babysitter or daycare, but Fred said he doesn't mind too much. Sure, it gets hard when other kids make fun of him because he doesn't read as good as them, but it's just because he missed some days when the teacher taught everyone else some reading stuff. Fred tells us that he knows he's smart, especially with numbers. We've seen him with the older boys, only when Fred is out trying to help his mom by making money scamming the older kids at dice games. Now, let's step back and look at the bigger picture of Fred's story. Fred explains that he has a host of personal troubles. A single mom, working full-time for less than a living wage, no child care for his baby brother. Fred fell behind in school because he's absent so much, but somehow, even though his reading skills are poor, he keeps progressing through the school system. Other kids who don't miss so much school tend to bully him and seem to have fun making him feel out of place at school. He's smart with math, though, so he uses his talent to con the corner boys out of their cash in order to help his mom pay for essentials. When only Fred experiences these circumstances, they remain personal troubles. But I think we all know Fred's not alone. In a time and place where working a full-time job doesn't pay enough for child care and essential expenses, this is a public issue. In the social sciences, we frame this as a low-wage issue. It's not all Fred's mom's fault that her employer keeps her overworked and underpaid. This is a problem in the 21st century for hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. When and where there is a lack of affordable, safe childcare, this too is a public issue. Hundreds of thousands of single parents, even dual-parent households, struggle to pay for childcare, even if parents are working full-time. Family members used to live near enough to one another to help with childcare when possible. Some still do. Many grandmas and aunties raise their grandkids and nieces or nephews, but economic demands, job availability, and other factors have forced many families to live very far apart. And don't get me started on how COVID-19 has mucked things up even more. Fred continuing to pass each grade even though he can barely read, that's not all Fred's fault. There's thousands of kids in the US who graduate high school and who are functionally illiterate. This is a public issue. School funding often depends, at least in part, on student success rates, and progressing through school, perhaps many educators find themselves in a system structured to ensure that some kids who shouldn't graduate do. But those are the kids who will end up doing the low-wage work that society depends on, and the other kids who are actually successful, they're the ones that'll go off to college, then work in a professional career, or specialize in a high-paying trade. If Fred is the only kid to get bullied, then being made fun of and outcast at school means a personal trouble. But we know that if one kid is getting bullied this way, then the school environment is conducive to bullies. This is a public issue. Finally, Fred lives in a community where older boys gather on the corner and are known for being in trouble with the police. With a busy, exhausted mom at home, Fred knows she won't even notice that he's hanging out with the delinquent older kids. Again, if it was just Fred's mom who wasn't able to supervise Fred, that'd be a personal trouble. But today, in communities where more than half of all households with children are headed by single women, this is a public issue. Are you beginning to get the picture? Fred's personal troubles are contextualized by what social scientists refer to as a culture of poverty. Fred's story is not at all unique, but if we didn't step back to consider the context of time and place, we'd probably just label him as lazy, careless, a social burden, trouble just waiting to happen, because he chooses not to try hard in school, work hard, and reach the American dream. We'd probably even go so far as to say it's his mother's fault for not making him go to school, for not keeping an eye on him more when he's playing outside with friends, for not working hard enough to properly provide for her 2 sons. In criminology, just like in sociology, it's our ability to place individuals in context, seek to understand how in a given time and place social structures and institutions shape the experiences and behaviors of individuals, our biographies. This sets our theories and research up to make real policy and program suggestions. Try to use your criminological imagination each and every time you hear about, read about, see, or interact with others. If you want to make a difference using your criminology and criminal justice education, it's not enough to memorize theories from textbooks or learn fancy statistical techniques. Your goal is to discover mechanisms that have been missed in existing criminological theories, then build theory of your own that can be tested. Or your goal may be to take a step back and discover a concept in current theories that might just be operating a little bit differently than what most research has assumed. Redefine a concept, test it, and hit the pavement with your contributions to our understanding of the causes and consequences of crime. Now, if you were to ask young Timmy why he does so well in school, what might his answers reveal?